wage workers in 22 states, including Hawaii, will get a raise at the start of the new year. The higher hourly rates are due either to scheduled increases or lawmakers upping the minimum wage in their jurisdictions because of inflation. Come January 1st, 7 states and the District of Columbia will have minimum wages of $15 or more. In New York City, the minimum wage is increasing to $16 an hour. The highest state minimum wage will be in Washington state at $16.28. That's up from $15.74. A close second is California, which is raising its minimum wage to $16 from $15.50. The state with the biggest jump in its minimum wage next year is Hawaii, which is hiking it by $2 from $12 to $14. 20 states are still using the federal minimum wage of $7.25, which hasn't gone up since 2009.